This is the one we've all been waiting for, the return of Roman Reigns to WWE, and the expectation is that Roman is going to return at SummerSlam. If that happens, how does WWE do it? How do they pull this off? That is the big question, because you only get one opportunity for a big return, and how will WWE make this one of the most unforgettable moments in the history of the company? There are lots of options, and let's run through a couple different scenarios of how this could play out with the return of the tribal chief. I think people are in fear of scenario number one because that is one that honestly proposes the idea that Solo Sikoa should walk out of SummerSlam as the WWE Undisputed Champion, given the fact that we fully expect it to be Solo challenging Cody Rhodes for the title in the main event, and that could be something that would set in motion a lot of different things. For starters, be a lot of online criticism. Also would be the fact that Solo would have pinned Cody Rhodes in back-to-back PLEs, which is precisely the reason I don't think this is going to happen. But you can't deny that this has at least been something they've worked into the story since WrestleMania 40, where Solo Sikoa's whole mission has been to get that locker room back for the Bloodline, and Paul Heyman told him, you don't get that locker room back until you have the championship. And so Solo's quest has been to build a more savage Bloodline, which has helped him now put him in the position to get an opportunity to win the title. So, if that happens, hey, I understand why it fits into the story. But I don't think it would be a popular move, and I don't think it's the move that WWE is going to go with because, again, you can do this in another way where Solo does not have to win, and I just don't think Solo is in position right now to pin Cody Rhodes on back-to-back PLEs, especially when the latter of the two involves him winning the world title. So, I think that option for me is probably out of the mix here, which leads us to the next option. And then really these are the two that you can pick from in terms of, do you want the Avengers to assemble now or do you want the Avengers to assemble later? Because if we go with Cody Rhodes retaining the championship against Solo, we know it's probably going to be by some sort of botched interference or something like that. It's a bloodline match. There's going to be interference. We saw all the interference in the Cody versus Roman match at WrestleMania 40. The problem is, though, with that, you don't really want people necessarily to interfere on Cody's behalf because then that would be another big match where Cody has to win via interference. Maybe you can get away with it if you do it right, but I think you want to find a way here for Cody to beat Solo, somehow overcoming the numbers of the Bloodline, and again, whether it's some kind of botched interference or something like that, that is probably the way you get Cody to pin Solo and have him retain the championship. Now, if that happens, the Bloodline is going to be pissed. They're not going to be happy. Solo's not going to be happy. And the most dangerous man in the world, Jacob Fatu, also probably not going to be happy. So that's where you can have the Bloodline attack Cody after the match. We've already seen how savage their attacks can be. They've done it to Jey Uso in the earlier stages of the Solo run here. They've done it to Paul Heyman, the most vicious of the group. And they've kind of done it in various ways to Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. So how do you get those guys out of the equation? Because if the Bloodline attacks Cody Rhodes after this match, then you really need Cody to be alone. And that's where maybe you do have Orton and Owens interfere, the Bloodline take them out, then Cody's by himself getting ready to get Shield powerbombed right onto the announce table the way that Paul Heyman did. Because at that point, it's like, hey, Cody retained the title, but at what cost? Because who cares if he's the champion if he's sidelined with an injury for months based on the attack from the Bloodline? So I think that's what you want to set up. You want to set up Cody to be in a very precarious spot, even if he retains the title. Because then you have the option to, like I said, have the Avengers assemble. Sami Zayn is going to defend the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam. He could lose that title to Braun Breaker or Ilya Dragunov. We don't really know the scenario just yet, but if he loses that title, is that what gets him then to somehow move back into this Bloodline story? Jey Uso, what's he doing at SummerSlam? He'll be in the building. Will he have something going on with the Wyatt Six? We don't know in terms of his match or anything like that as of now. But remember, it was Sami Zayn and Jey Uso were the two people that had Cody on their shoulders at WrestleMania 40 when Cody won the championship from Roman Reigns. Those were the two guys who picked Cody up. Those two have been connected to Cody as his friends, all that. So, if they're in the building, it only makes sense from a story perspective. They need to come out and try to help Cody if Kevin Owens and Randy Orton are taken out of the equation. Now, I will quickly do a sidebar here because I've seen some people mention, is this where Randy Orton turns on Cody Rhodes? Maybe, but I don't know how Randy Orton turning on Cody Rhodes and helping the Bloodline makes a lot of sense, given the fact that the Bloodline has tried to destroy Randy Orton over the past several months now. So I don't know that I would go that route. I think you want to kind of move beyond this before you get Randy Orton helping the Bloodline somehow and turning on Cody. I don't like that idea. But to get back to Sami and Jey, let's say that Cody is all by himself, Owens and Orton are out of the equation, the Bloodline continuing the attack, getting ready to finish Cody once and for all. And then if you want to assemble the Avengers now, you get Sami and Jey coming out to try to help. And if that happens, they try to fight off the Bloodline, but still, it's a numbers game, right? The Bloodline still have the numbers advantage. And keep in mind, by this point, maybe the Bloodline adds another member in Tama Tonga, a.k.a. the former Hikuleo from New Japan. Perhaps he joins by then, and then you've got 5 against 3, 4, 2, 1, whatever the combination is. And then what do you need from there? Remember, the whole reason we're doing this Cody versus Solo main event is to get Roman Reigns back, because otherwise, this probably wouldn't be perhaps the one that's slotted in that spot. But that is the whole goal here, is to get that memorable pop that could rival some of the biggest pops we've ever heard in the history of WWE, because the chants have already been there. We want Roman, we want Roman, we want Roman. The fans want Roman Reigns. And then if you have a scenario where perhaps Cody's about to be taken out, how ironic would it be if it's the music of Roman Reigns that hits, that stops the Bloodline, the huge pop and all that. But before that happens, somebody else needs to make their return, because commentary made it clear to point out that after the wise man, Paul Heyman, took that shield bomb through the table, that we would not see Paul Heyman for a long time. Well, we need Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns to come back together. It's the only way to do it, and I think you could do sort of the trademark, ladies and gentlemen, that is kind of the signal as you have, the Bloodline maybe looking to finish off Cody and all that. You hear the voice of Paul Heyman, and then maybe that's where you have the music hit for Roman Reigns, and it brings him back into the equation. You get the Bloodline that stops. Cody has already been taken out. Maybe again, Orton, Owens, Zayn, Jey, if they're all there, whoever's there, we know it's the Bloodline that are standing tall before that music hits. And when that first note of Roman Reigns' theme hits, close your ears maybe. It may be a little too loud. Turn down the volume on your computer, on your TV, whatever it is you're watching on, because it's going to be enormous. And that's how big this could be for Roman Reigns to make his return. And I think what's interesting in terms of this dynamic too is, if you bring Heyman back, if you bring Reigns back, do you bring Jey Uso back too? Because those are the 3 that have been the ones of the previous iteration of the Bloodline that have all been taken out basically in different ways by this new version, right? Physically, Jey Uso, Paul Heyman. I mean, emotionally, however else you want to do it with Roman Reigns. Like, Solo has taken over Roman's spot. We know that now. That's the story they're pushing. But they've also put their hands on Jimmy. They put their hands on Paul Heyman. And so, do you do it to where maybe Jimmy comes out first? Then maybe you hear the voice of Heyman. And then maybe it is Roman Reigns, as the power of 3, is the final one to come out. And then you have Roman, Jimmy, Heyman, all connected. You have the Bloodline standing tall. Again, whether or not they've taken out perhaps the people who have come to help. But I think that's where you want to get to here, is to decide whether you're going to assemble the Avengers now, like I said. But I think the better option probably is to wait, because I think what you want to do is establish that Roman's back, Jimmy's back, Heyman's back, and now they're still at a numbers disadvantage, even with those guys back, right? The new Bloodline still has the numbers, and that's where we start building to WarGames and Survivor Series in several months' time. And then during that period is where you start to have Heyman go out and recruit Jey Uso back into the mix, recruit Sami Zayn back into the mix perhaps. And I think that's the story you want to tell. And maybe that's where you do have Cody Rhodes on the same side of Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Sami Zayn in some sort of WarGames combination heading into Survivor Series. And again, it's all about tension. Think about the tension between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, the tension between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, the tension between Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn. How do you get all those guys on the same page? That's the story. If that's the route they go, that is the story you want to tell. and you don't have to tell it all at SummerSlam. You only have to get the first chapter started, and I think that does involve the return, obviously, of Roman Reigns. I think there is a good scenario where you can also bring back Jimmy and Heyman with him at the same time, because those are the three who were scorned, right, by this new bloodline. You bring Jimmy out first, you bring Heyman out second, because when you bring Heyman out, everybody knows who's coming out next, and that's Roman Reigns. And so I think you sort of tease the interactions, you tease all that. I don't think you want to get into necessarily the physicality just yet, because you want to save that as the hook for SmackDown after SummerSlam. And so I think, to me, that's how I would do it. Cody retains against Solo Sikoa. The Bloodline take out Cody. Pick your baby faces to try to make the save. Maybe you bring Jey and Sami into this then, or maybe it is as simple as Orton and Owens trying to make the save. They can't do it. But then the Tribal Chief is back after Jimmy tries to get involved. Heyman comes out to sort of lead the way for the return of Roman Reigns to WWE, and you get kind of that closing visual of the sort of back and forth stares between Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, the Bloodline, perhaps Roman, Jimmy, and Heyman. They're standing out, on the stage or whatever. That, I think, is your closing visual that sets everything up to tell everybody, oh shit, business has just picked up, and we are here and ready for the true Bloodline Civil War. That's just an option from my perspective as to how they could do this with Roman Reigns' return to WWE, which is anticipated to be at SummerSlam. You guys let me know what you think. How do you see this playing out? How would you do it? How would you book the WWE return of Roman Reigns? As always, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out. Always appreciate your feedback. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How should Roman Reigns return to WWE? Should it be at SummerSlam? Should Jimmy return with him? Who else should be involved in this Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa main event and the aftermath at SummerSlam?